Howdy folks, I hope you're all having a good weekend and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with the mighty Jingles. I'm back in the bubble after my little detour out to Colonia and Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole at the centre of the galaxy. I now have grade 5 access to just about every engineer I could possibly want, and so of course, what else is there to do than to take the old Fer-de-Lance out of storage, engineer the shit out of the weapons and systems, and go and test them on some poor unsuspecting pirates who never did anybody any harm. By the way, if you're wondering what all the clicking and whirring in the background is, for once it's not actually my fault. With the introduction of fleet carriers, Frontier Developments also introduced a sound bug into the game. I know, do try to contain your shock. What seems to be happening is every time I dock at a station, all of the engineering noises going on in the background keep going on in the background when I launch from the station. They fixed this bug after a couple of weeks, but at the point where I was recording this, it was still present. So I'm afraid you're just going to have to put up with it. So I'm closing in on a resource extraction site, because you can always find things to shoot at resource extraction sites. This is high threat, not hazardous. So it's at the top end of the scale, but I'm running a test here. I don't want to try to bite off more than I can chew. I should be able to find enemies rated expert, dangerous, possibly even a couple of elites. You never know your luck. The Fer-de-Lance that I'm flying is rated by many as the best combat ship in the game. But the last time I took this thing out for a test, it was with mostly unengineered modules. It certainly didn't have heavily engineered weapons, and things didn't go very well. Now, of course, I've unlocked grade 5 access to people like Mel Brandon out in Colonia, and with the pinned blueprints, I've got a very, very big beam laser with grade 5 efficiency mods, which basically means I can keep it firing forever, and it'll never drain the power capacitor. That's backed up with 4 large multi-cannons, also engineered thanks to Todd the Blaster McQuinn. The multi-cannons are very efficient weapons. They draw very, very little power and they generate very little heat. They're only really limited by their ammunition supply. When they're reloading, I can just keep using the beam laser. It's not as efficient at chewing through armour as the multi-cannons are, but when the multi-cannons aren't firing, I may as well. Finally found somebody who's wanted. He's only in an adder. He's rated expert, but he's only in an adder. There goes the beam laser. And his shields are pretty much already gone. Finish him off with the multi-cannons, I think. 4 large multi-cannons. Really take no prisoners. 17,000 credit bounty. Yeah, I could get used to this. I mean, he wasn't much of a threat. But let's have a look at what he dropped. I'm interested in the engineering materials, obviously. The thing about the Fer-de-Lance is that it's very, very good at combat, but that's all it's good for. Its cargo capacity is enough to carry some collector limpets to pick up the salvage that you generate from blowing people up, but you're definitely not going to be making money hauling cargo in this thing. That's just not what it's for. It's very, very fast, but its jump range is terrible. So it's no good at hauling cargo, it's no good at exploration, but if you need something killed in a very short space of time, there aren't that many better choices than a Fer-de-Lance. Certainly not in this weight class. It definitely punches far above its weight. It has 5 weapon hardpoints. One of them's huge, and the other 4 are large. So I've set this one up with, as we've already mentioned, 1 huge beam laser. It's engineered for efficiency, so it generates very little heat, and it draws so little power that during that brief skirmish with the adder, I didn't even have 4 pips of power to the weapons, and the power capacitor bar barely moved. Compare that to the first time I took the Fer-de-Lance out with a huge beam laser that was maybe engineered to grade 2 or 3, and I couldn't run it for more than 4 or 5 seconds before overheating and draining the power capacitor, even with 4 pips of power to weapons. That, of course, is backed up with 4 large multi-cannons, which are very efficient weapons in their own right. I also enjoy a boost speed of more than 500 meters per second. Like I said, this thing is pretty fast, but I've also engineered the engines with dirty drive tuning. And I don't believe the engines are fully engineered, so she can go even faster than this. The basic idea is she's got the firepower to kill nearly anything, and anything that she can't kill, anything that she's outgunned by, she can pretty easily outrun. Bit like a battlecruiser. Okay, let's see if I can pick a fight with somebody who's going to be a bit more challenged than somebody in an adder, even if they are expert rated. Sorry, rated. Oh, this is more like it. A python, and he's rated elite. And he seems to be in trouble. He's already lost his shields, so this should be quite easy. He seems to have picked a fight with the wrong bunch of miners. He's getting swarmed by all kinds of different ships. I'm seeing a couple of eagles, maybe an Imperial Courier, a Cobra, and I'm pretty sure there's an Anaconda out there shooting at him as well as me. So yeah, he's not going to make it out of this one alive. I wonder how much he's worth. He's not shooting at me either. I mean, this is no test of the Fer-de-Lance's defensive systems, engineered though they may be. Yeah, there is an Anaconda shooting at him as well. But as far as a firepower test is concerned, yeah, this will do. And how much is he worth? 210,000 credits. Nice. And I barely had to do anything. Well, we'll see what salvage he dropped, and then we'll see if we can find something that's a bit more of a challenge that's actually going to shoot back.
Cargo scoop deployed.
Collect the limpets out. Cargo scoop deployed. Let's make sure I add his cargo to my exclusion list. I don't want to pick that stuff up. It'll count as stolen goods. And with that done, the collector should just focus on the engineering materials. Shortly afterwards, here's that slightly more challenging target that I ordered, a Federal dropship. And he's wanted, and he's rated dangerous. And there's nobody here but me and him. So this is a straight one-on-one between my Fer-de-Lance and this Federal dropship. Let's have it. The difference between the Federal dropship and... it's more of a tank. It's got very heavy armour. And it's also very heavily armed, and he's jamming my weapons, so I can't get the target lock. Well, two can play at that game. You can see his burst lasers are having trouble finding the target, although I seem to be taking minor impacts from his multi-cannons. But that's fine, the shields can take it. And I've got my weapons lock off again, and his shields are pretty much gone. The dropship shields aren't great, but then again the Fer-de-Lance's shields aren't great, and the dropship has way heavier armour than Fer-de-Lance. My advantages here are speed and manoeuvrability, and you'll note that I'm not actually using those advantages. This is just a straight slugfest. Who's got the heaviest weapons? And the reason I'm not using the speed and manoeuvrability is because I have not yet learned how to fly with flight assist off. I could be flying circles around this guy. I mean, I've seen people in heavily engineered sidewinders, you know, the free ship that you get if you can't afford the insurance on the ship that you just lost, sidewinders, flying circles around anacondas and making the anaconda cry, purely and simply because if you fly it well, you can keep the sidewinder in the anaconda's blind spots and it can never get a shot off at you. But that requires, well, being good. And I'm not. And anyway, as you can see, I've achieved the same result just by throwing engineering at the problem. He did nearly take my shields down, but, well, I've had the shields engineered. I mean, the Fer-de-Lance does not have particularly strong shields, but I've fitted the best shields that it can have, and I've engineered them for thermal resistance. So the hits that he scored with his beam lasers were actually only doing 50% of the damage that they should have been doing. And the hits that he was scoring with his multi-cannons, well, projectile weapons, well, the most common projectile weapons that you come across, multi-cannons, don't do a large amount of damage to shields. If I ever run into somebody who actually knows what they're doing, and they're on with Gauss cannons or plasma projectiles, I'm in deep shit, but I can always run away from that. So that brief weapon test earned me 421,000 credits worth of bounty vouchers, which isn't bad. I mean, I was going to be going out and shooting things up anyway. It's nice to get paid for it into the bargain. But now what? Well, I'm doing okay. I mean, I have 134 million credits in the bank. I've got a bunch of ships that are probably worth 300 to 400 million credits between them. Thing is, I don't want to sell those ships because I kind of like them. But I really would like to get my Imperial Cutter back. So that's why you find me here in my Python, the LSV, or Limited Systems Vehicle Profit Margin. Actually, while we're here, let's just take a quick look at the ships that I have in storage. And bear in mind that what you're seeing is a snapshot of my garage, if you like, now, not a couple of months ago when all of this was recorded. So, first, my heavily engineered Sidewinder, the Limited Offensive Unit Gunboat Diplomat. There's a bit of a naming convention going on here. Then my Imperial Courier, the Rapid Offensive Unit Trade Surplus. My Asp Explorer, the General Contact Unit Lewis and Clark. Then of course my Python, which is what I'm flying right now, the Limited Systems Vehicle Profit Margin. Next, we have my Crate Mark II, the Limited Offensive Unit Nuisance Value. Any science fiction fans seeing the connection here yet? I rebought and re-engineered the Anaconda, the General Systems Vehicle Sleeper Service. And then, just for a break with tradition, the Imperial Star Destroyer Devastator, my Federal Corvette, and there's a story behind how I acquired that. And then, of course, the Imperial Cutter, which is the aim of the mining expedition that I'm currently on in the Python, the General Systems Vehicle Ethics Gradient. It should be pretty obvious by now that I remain a massive fan of the late great science fiction novelist Ian M. Banks, who unfortunately passed away well over 10 years ago now, but his books are amazing, and I particularly, as most of Ian M. Banks' fans do, love the names that he came up with for the ships in his books, and that's the naming convention that I've established for the ships that I have here in Elite. So as you can see, right now, as of today, I have some seriously expensive ships with some seriously expensive upgrades installed, probably assets to the value of 2 or 3 billion credits there, as well as 300 million credits in spare change. And the reason I was able to afford all of that was thanks to this. The last great shout of the quadruple overlapping low temperature diamond hotspots before Frontier Developments nerfed the shit out of asteroid mining. This was the Col 285 Sector XN-D A28-2 system. And as you can tell by the sheer volume of fleet carriers parked in orbit around the various different planets here, don't worry, I counted them for you so you don't have to, 84 fleet carriers in this one system alone. There must be something pretty special going on here, and there was, because they were triple overlapping low temperature diamond hotspots in the icy rings around some of the planets in this system, and people were making money faster than they could spend it, myself included. And a couple of hours spent lasering rocks in that system paid for this beauty, the Imperial Cutter. She is mine once again, only this time fully upgraded and fully engineered, thanks to the trip that I took out to Colonia in order to access the services of people like Mel Brandon. Totally not worth it. Don't get me wrong, I love the Cutter. It's a beautiful ship, but it's not actually that good. I mean, it is probably the best mining ship in the game. In fact, it is definitely the best mining ship in the game. But for everything else that you could possibly think of doing in this ship, there are other ships that are better at it. They're just not as pretty. So I got my Cutter back. Now what do I do? And that was a really good question, because for the first time since getting back into Elite, I was kind of stumped. And then, one day, completely by accident, I stumbled across something that I'd never seen before. I was cruising the Pleiades sector in my Python, hoping to bump into some Thargoids and maybe get some scans of them, when I bumped into this instead. It's a listening post, and once I got close enough to scan it and download the data in its memory banks, it provided me with a little mystery. A mystery that was just begging to be solved. And solve it we shall. You know, assuming nothing fatal happens to me in the meantime. Oh, Akazuki, seriously, have some faith. It's almost like she knows me. But that's what we're going to be getting up to in the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you're all having a great weekend. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.